Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. In this D&D review, I'm going to take a look at the monster compendium, Dragonix's Deadly Denizens II, which is now available on Roll20. This review has been sponsored by the publisher, and a review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. And if you enjoy these reviews and enjoy watching fun weekly live plays and other D&D content, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. But wait, you ask, Eric, haven't you already covered Dragonix's Deadly Denizens and two? Well, two things. I reviewed the first Dragonix Deadly Denizens when it came to Roll20, I believe, and also I did a preview of this sequel book when it was on Kickstarter, and was also able to look through the preview version. I can say that the Kickstarter was obviously a huge success, as it of course should be, and now the book is officially converted into Roll20, including all the tokens and the stat blocks and stuff within the Roll20 ecosystem, which is how I'm going to be specifically doing this review. And you get the compendium, which means you can, of course, add it to, or it's automatically really in all your Roll20 games. You just have to, search for them on your compendium whenever you're in a game, or you can look at it in the separate compendium section if you want to see them separate from any game. You also get the art pack, which is something I really enjoy that Dragonix provides, especially in this kind of day and age when a lot of creators have to frankly defend themselves against AI accusations and all this, is using no AI work whatsoever. All artists are human, and they are either from licensed work that's been previously available or original arts content. And that's something that kind of the Monster Manual Expanded series became known for, I think, is for having awesome artwork. And then again here in the Deadly Denizens series, which is basically, if you're not familiar with the Monster Manual Expanded series, first of all, how dare you, because they're absolutely amazing and they really should be part of every DM's collection. And then the Deadly Denizen series is essentially more original creatures, and also still using a lot of what Dragonix does very well, which is just taking existing stat blocks already and combining them in really fun and creative ways. And that actually creates new monsters effectively, and also makes it easy, I think, for especially a veteran DM to be able to come up with new monsters instead of having to futz your way through figuring out how new mechanics work. Just take all the existing mechanics that exist in the monster manual and then be able to apply those to other creatures. That's a huge weight off of a DM in terms of trying to figure out how to make creatures fun. It's also a really good antidote to players that have played for a long time and they kind of metagame a little bit, even though maybe they're not supposed to, but they can't help it when they see a certain creature. They're like, oh, I know what this creature is capable of and everything. And by using these kind of new variants and combination creatures, it really, I think, throws players for a loop, even though you as the DM, it's actually a lot more familiar than for the players having to deal with that kind of thing. So I think we're going to look at this compendium section, and I'll show you how like a lot of the tokens and stuff actually look in the Roll20 Master Game, because I do think the token art has been vastly improved. So with this book, we get a lot of templates. The market, the description actually says 9. I counted 8. Maybe I'm missing one of the template styles, but these templates are ways in which the DM can transform existing creatures into a different type of creature. For example, you want to turn an owl bear into a celestial owl bear, or there's a dendroid versions, which are like you turn a creature into a plant creature, so you could turn like a rhinoceros into a plant rhinoceros, and then it gives you like the template on how to do that. So these kind of stats are changed. Maybe its speed gets decreased, but it has a base. It basically gains bark skin, where it has like a certain amount of AC. That's the baseline. It gains the false appearance trait, for example. I'm using Aberrant as an example because I think it's probably the most advanced one that's used. Most of them aren't this complicated. A lot of them are just like, hey, change this stat to this. Make sure they gain either like blind sight or dark vision, or they might gain this certain resistance. And it allows you to take any existing stat block kind of similar to what, again, everything's based on the monster manual, and then just make those changes, and then you've just created effectively a new creature. But again, to the players, when you describe it, you're like, oh, it's this, quadrupedal, plant monster, and they don't know what the fuck it is, but it's just a rhinoceros, but it's got all these like plant traits on it. So again, I think that's a really cool thing for DMs to be able to utilize, a really cool part of the toolkit. And the example here with the aberrant is it's more advanced because a lot of the aberrant traits are so unique. The aberrant category is in itself kind of chaotic and mutation and eldritch and all that. So instead of just having everybody have like the same kind of traits, like again, like false appearance for Dendroid, or for like cryo and pyro creatures, obviously they have like death burst effects, and they have these elemental auras that deal damage. But for the aberrants, it's a lot more like bespoke. Basically, you gain certain like psychic attacks that you can give. You could base your creatures. You could give them abilities similar to what an aboleth has, or what a cloaker has, or what a chul has. Give them chitinous armor, a gibbering mouther, for example. Give them all those kind of traits. Give them a single giant eye that could do all these different abilities. For example, maybe like a beholder like abilities or something. So it gets really interesting, and you're supposed to give them one, I think it's one primary aberrant trait and one secondary aberrant trait, and it lists kind of what all those different traits are. And the examples that we're going to look at is like the aberrant troll, which is literally a troll. You can see the artwork here is fabulous, covered in like the classic gibbering mouther, kind of just slimy ooze of mouths. And of course it has the gibbering trait, which is a pain in the butt, which causes like the confusion ability for everybody. Still has all of its troll regeneration, but also the troll gains a ranged attack, which is kind of a weakness of the troll, where it now has the blinding spittle attack of the gibbering mouther. So just a great example again of this one. In fact, literally basically combines two creatures, right? The troll and the gibbering mouther into a very unique stat block. Now the players may think they kind of know what's going on here because these might be two more iconic creatures, but I think that's still a very clever way of doing it. Another example is the aberrant wyvern, which combines basically three creatures: the wyvern, with the flight and the poisonous tail and everything, the chul, I think, with the claws. I guess it could be anything, but like the claws and the pincher attack, so it allows you to grapple, which I love flying creatures that can pick people up, by the way. I think that's very fun. And has, I believe, the cloaker ability, which is the moan it can do, which is kind of an AoE wisdom save where everybody becomes frightened, which is a good thing to launch, as well as being a bonus action. Doesn't mess up your action economy too much. So just a good example of how you can have these aberrant templates. And each of these templates includes, let's see, how many does it include? So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16 stat blocks here as examples of an aberrant. And that's how it works for a lot of these different template styles. So for example, I know I keep talking about the Dendroid ones. You can see all the different Dendroid templates we have here. Roper, saber-toothed tiger, although having a Roper with false appearance is kind of a pointless. Purple worm, kobold, hydra. Those are all examples of different Dendroid templates. Now, the one disadvantage is that not every one of these creatures necessarily has a token. All of the original creatures do have artwork, and it's awesome. Obviously, each variant, I call it a variant. I don't know if that's the right, maybe not the right, like each size or whatever. Like something Dragonix does very well that I enjoy is that every single creature they provide has multiple like strength versions of that creature. So there's like the normal creature, and then there's like the bigger adult or elder version, and there's like the ancient super badass like late game boss version. But it's all relative to that creature. And sometimes there's a young version also if you want to make a weaker one, if the main one's a little more powerful. So you get basically multiple variants. All of those share a single piece of art, which is fine. And then for the templates, we just straight up don't get art for all of them necessarily. So like let's see, I think an example might be like the purple worm. Dendroid, I believe, does not have its own artwork. Yeah, but like other Dendroids do. Trying to remember which one does that has a appearance. I think the Kobold has a cool artwork for it. So it's something to be aware for the Roll20 version. Yeah, some of them do have art when it comes to these templates, but not all of them do. But I'm not necessarily going to count that as a con against the adventure, because these templates are really just examples of what the designers already taught you to do. So these template rules are all plugged in already, and all of these stat blocks here are just like examples basically of, hey, here's me using my own template rules, applying them to a creature from the monster manual, and then just giving you that as an example. I appreciate these examples are here, but I also don't consider that a knock against the designer for not having artwork for every single one of those creatures. So the templates are really cool and awesome, and I enjoy those quite a bit. But I want to move on and try to cover a lot of different creature styles. And like the fungoid one is really cool. If you want to do like a Last of Us style, dungeon crawl or something where they can spread their diseased fungus on your players, and the players have to make saves against that. And it literally can even appear from their bite attack or from the players just attacking the fungal creatures and being near them. The spores go off. Also, a ton of variants for existing creatures like golems, for kobolds, marrow, mummies, sturges, like all of these creatures that maybe only have a few different stat blocks available in the monster manual now have a ton of different variants, and that's very similar, frankly, to what the monster manual expanded did, but these just give you more, which I think is awesome. All right, so more examples of creatures that I really like. Let's see, we covered all the aberrant stuff. We've got the lightning anomaly. These are new elementals. We might even call them para-elementals, I think. It's based on a review I recently did that had the para-elemental cults. But these are other kind of elementals that are not your typical, fire and water. They're more like smoke, and lightning is one of them. I like the lightning one. Arcane was another one, I think. I just think it's cool to have like a creature of living energy. It feels like very like a superhero villain, I guess, in a way. But I could definitely see myself using a creature like this that was somehow, maybe somebody got caught in a trap or something, another survivor, and they just transformed into this thing of living lightning. But I wanted to point out one of its abilities. This lightning veil kind of works like a ongoing poison with lightning damage almost. Targets up to 3 creatures it can see. Each target must make a con save. On a failed save, the creatures become charged with electricity, and while charged, the target and each creature within 5 feet of them just takes 1d10 lightning damage at the start of each of the of this creature's turns. So it acts as this like kind of, ongoing AoE effect that it just continue like pulses lightning. I thought that was really interesting. I haven't seen a creature that could really do it. Hopefully it wouldn't be too much of a pain in the butt for DMs to handle, but I think it's crazy as a recharge. It almost seems like it'd be like a one-time use ability because it can do up to 3 creatures with one use of it. And this is another example where there's just different variants. There's basically different sizes of lightning on them. This is like the weakest version, basically the medium-sized one, and they just get bigger from there. The Onzu, which, by the way, I'm trying to specifically cover creatures that I didn't cover in the preview, if possible. I went back and I looked at my preview video, and I'm trying not to double, so you get even more information. But I may end up pointing out a few of the same. The Onzu is another lightning-based creature, and this one not only has an aura of lightning around them, which can deal damage for anybody who is attacking them or even nearby, but it also has essentially Call Lightning as a bonus action ability. And I love creatures, again, that can free up their poor action economy, or if they already have like a good multi-attack, which is very good. For example, unfortunately, this creature has to choose between multi-attack and Thunderous Roar, which Thunderous Roar is very good, and one of those that it should definitely do at the start of the fight. But it can keep doing that Call Lightning strike like every turn, and its Aura of Lightning is always on, so that makes it very, very nasty. Also, 60-foot fly speed and almost 200 hit points for a CR 12 giant kind of lioness lightning griffin creature, which is pretty nifty. The Assimilator, shout out if you know what this is from. The designer makes it pretty obvious, but I do love the artwork here. Obviously, John Carpenter would be very, very proud of this particular setup here. And this is a creature who it's obviously from the Thing. I love that it has the specific terrifying transformation. I believe similar to, is it the Deep Scion that has this, I think, whereas they actually transform. It's so terrifying, which that's the whole spiel of the Thing creature, right? Because it like hides another creature and then it bursts out into all these different limbs and stuff. And it forces a wisdom save or they become frightened of that creature. I do wish that the transformation was a bonus action, however, and it could still do at least some of its attacks, if not all of its attacks. I do like that it has Spider Climb and Regeneration and aversion to fire. It's weak against fire, which is fantastic. Actually, sorry, it's not. Is it not vulnerable to fire? It's just the fire actually debuffs it. That's right. Okay. One thing you may be noticing, which I haven't really talked about yet, is that these stat blocks and this entire book is specifically based on the 2014 Monster Manual. So this originally hit Kickstarter last fall, which I believe was before the 2024 books came out. Obviously, we only just recently now had the 2024 Monster Manual actually released. So that is something to be aware of. And I do think that's probably the book's biggest disadvantage, because I am very positive on the 2024 rulebook, and especially how it updated and kind of patched together a lot of monsters who had some issues or problems in terms of the action economy, or there was some of their goofier abilities or whatever was going on. It kind of fixed some of those up. It would be very interesting if the designer would incorporate some of those changes. For example, like dragons is probably the easiest example. Like dragons in the in the original had like detect as a legendary action, which was bullshit. I would love to see if Dragonix used the new 2024 updated rules and had like the better legendary actions, the more amount of legendary actions and resistances that the new book uses, for example. Just there is a lot of changes there, and it'll be interesting. I don't necessarily see having to do like a big update or patch for this one, because this one's already done. This one's perfectly fine in terms of this whole book. But for future books, I would like to see that, because I do think it's a bit of a bummer that this one doesn't take advantage of the 2024. But again, the timing just wasn't quite there for that. The Chenu is another cool creature. A lot of these, I think, are still using... this was especially true of the first book, the first Dragonix Deadly Denizens, where it was based on a lot of folklore and supernatural creatures from around the world. I'm certainly not very super familiar with every different culture's various supernatural creatures, although as somebody who enjoys fantasy stories and monsters and stuff, I've certainly learned a lot. If anything, I probably just have ignorance in terms of not knowing where things exactly come from, frankly. So I don't know. Obviously, this kind of resembles a Wendigo. I don't know what the difference between a Chenu and a Wendigo is, but it's a creature who was transformed due to horrific cannibalism, due to like survival, terrifying survival ordeal. But again, the specific mechanics make this one very interesting. It has kind of the troll-like regeneration, although it's not as good. It's only 5 hit points, but that it never fully dies unless somebody uses an action to expose the frozen heart of this creature while it's incapacitated, and has to have fewer than 10 hit points. And then once exposed, you can then attack the Heart of Ice and destroy it. But I think your players, you would have to, or hopefully they would know to do, because I'm not sure they would ever know to do that, right? And this creature would just keep like popping back up, almost Undead Fortitude style. And then it would be a pain in the ass. So maybe you would have to, if you were really fighting this creature and your players had no idea how to fully kill it, then I think you'd have to slowly make that more obvious. But I do think this could make it a very interesting quest as well, where the players maybe have to fight this creature and then they realize they can't kill it or something, and they have to come back and figure out how to kill it. Or maybe they just learn ahead of time it's been stalking these people, killing people, and then through their investigation they learn the proper way to kill this creature. And then once they finally fight it in the climax of that adventure, they're equipped to fully put it down. But the nice thing is it's not just a shortcut either. It does mention you have to have them incapacitated and fewer than 10 hit points. You basically still have to have a boss fight, which of course the DM wants, but then the proper way to actually end it. So I like that part. But then it also just has a cool ability of Ravenous Frenzy, which is the first time it deals damage to a creature with its bite attack, it embiggens itself, essentially. It has the effect of the enlarge spell. It literally gets twice as big. It does extra damage based on its stuff, which it's listed in the stat block under Ravenous Frenzy. And all this stuff lasts for basically the rest of the fight, lasts for 1 hour. So when you fight the creature, when you first see it, you're like, okay, that looks pretty nasty. And then all of a sudden, as soon as it gets a successful bite attack off, which knowing me, the DM, it wouldn't get until like the end of the combat because I roll terrible, it suddenly gets bigger and more powerful. That's really interesting as again, a mechanic I haven't faced really, where a creature is this kind of stat block, and then obviously like swarms and stuff get weaker as you attack. Like there's kind of similar things, but this one, it literally gets stronger basically the first time you attack it, kind of permanently stronger for the rest of that fight at least. So really cool, interesting idea there. False Woods is like, what if you had a giant creepy like plant octopus who was an ambush predator? And I just love the artwork here, and the like, I don't know, it's just, it spoke to me. It spoke to me as a really crazy, cool idea you could build an entire adventure around, basically. Like the woods that people keep getting lost in. Oh, there's some kind of monster in there, and maybe even have all these red herrings, but other kind of monsters creeping in the woods. Maybe you fight a giant wolf, and you're like, oh, we did it. And then all of a sudden, the fucking trees themselves just start, like, just gripping you and turning you, and all of a sudden, this one giant, stump just kind of reveals itself to be a beak, and the whole friggin' woods section is alive. That's very cool. That's very cool. It's got mimicry to really be creepy. Of course, it's got the false appearance. It's literally just a giant plant. There's a smaller version. I think it's called Young False Woods or something. And then like a bigger version, a gargantuan version of it. But it's got like basically all these just amazing. It doesn't have a swallow feature that you think a lot of big tentacle creatures has. But otherwise, it's got just multiple tentacles it can use to grab people and then do its like massive tentacle barrage thing, which is really, really fun. So interesting idea there. Other creatures, just real quick, I want to go over let's see, go back to this screen, I think. Actually, no, we'll go to this screen. So this is this is, of course, Lost Mine of Fendover with the Red Brand hideout. Slight spoiler, but anybody watching this should be a DM and probably has run Lost Mine of Fendover before. These are actually the tokens in play. Some of the creatures I've covered, some I have not yet covered, but I wanted to make sure to look at these the token art and see how they look like on an actual map, as well as actually show you the comparison between the second book, which are these here in the middle, and then the first one, which are up here. And you can see a huge improvement over the token art. Not only just the art itself, but like the backgrounds look a lot better. For example, you don't have any of these kind of, plain brown backgrounds with some of these other creatures. And it's just fantastic with the way that the token art now looks a little bit more dynamic within the token. It's kind of properly zoomed in. I like the way our Koishi person looks, which is kind of like the sorcerer equivalent of a lich, basically. I love the description on this, by the way. I actually want to read this. Let's see, where is the description of this creature? Koishi's. Maybe I don't have it. Okay, I forgot where the description was. It's something cool about it. It was like incorporeal, shadowy tendrils. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. From the waist down, its form dissolves into a non-corporeal mass of shadowy tendrils. That is like literally the sentence I would use if I was a DM describing this creature to somebody else. And this is basically like the sorcerer version of a lich. Essentially, it's the same concept of a lich with a phylactery and everything else. But it's actually very simplistic the way you run this creature. It just has quicken spell, heighten spell. It can cast shield 3 times a day, effectively raising its AC up and above the 20s. And its main just auto attack blast ability. Not only does it 66 necrotic damage, but it also has that awful ability that like the shadows have, where they can reduce your strength by 1d6 with every attack. That is real nasty. The Huldra is your classic sexy. Does every culture have this, by the way? Kind of the equivalent of this sexy woman in this strange place, and she's supposed to seduce you, but also you will die. I feel like there's an equivalent of that, and this one is particularly creepy. I love the juxtaposition between this just very like delicate looking creature, and then also like something is very, very wrong with it. It's got these like bloody plant barbs ripping out of their back, and it's actually, the stab block itself is a very interesting combination of dryad, harpy, and vampire. It's got the luring song of a harpy, right? It's got kind of dryad-y spells, actually really great spells for fucking with people. Charm person, invisibility, suggestion, disguise self, like everything it needs. Root tendrils is, of course, those plants bursting out of its back, which can grapple people. And then if you're grappled in its root tendrils, then it can do its blood drain ability and drain your life. You can't regain hit points and all this nasty stuff. So I know a lot of people would say worth it, but just don't mess with weirdly sexy women who are in very remote, odd locations. It just never, whatever culture it is, it never ends well for anybody. The gray lindworm. The lindworms are something I covered a lot in when I did my preview video, but these are kind of offshoots of dragons, which are more serpentine, kind of like the Chinese dragons. And they all have just really cool, interesting abilities where it combines like a giant snake, like constricting ability, but with also kind of a dragon's multi-attack and long range, not necessarily a breath weapon, but some kind of a long range ability has to do with their elements. What else we got? Oh yeah, and then I wanted to cover the halfling gang boss. I thought this was absolutely amazing. The voice, of course, I would use would be Joe Pesci, clearly. But there's also a lot of NPC stat blocks in this book that give you different, like tieflings or dwarves or fallen paladins or, whatever bandits. And I feel like those are stat blocks that, aren't the sexiest thing to have as a DM, but you end up using those frankly, probably more than anything else, because the other creatures are ones that you would use, like, you'd frame an entire adventure on this one creature. But then for, like, for entire factions, for example, or cults or whatever, then you would use these multiple NPC. But in this case, it's a boss creature, basically a high level rogue who has legendary resistance and some neat abilities that speak to the fact that they are a leader, so they can like command their allies or just give advantage to everybody around them and that kind of thing. So very, very cool. But I think it's a huge plus that we have way better improved token art, because I think that does matter when it comes to virtual tabletops and Roll20 especially. But of course, the real meat of it is that the creatures themselves are absolutely fantastic. Let's go over my pros and cons, and then my final thoughts for Dragonix's Deadly Denizens 2. Pro, over 350 stat blocks, which include all the variants, and there's over about 60 types. So you can do the math there, but like I don't know, like the Chenu would be like one type, the Lightning Anomaly would be one type, the Anzu is one type, and within each of those types, there's at least like 3 variants for every single creature, and some of them there's like 10 or 15 when it comes to like the Lindworms or something. So that's still to give you somebody that's like, oh, don't count the variants as stat blocks, you still get like 60 some different types of creatures, which is nuts. Over 30 of those 350 plus stat blocks are all the new NPC stat blocks and variants, which again I think are really useful and important to have. In fact, I think they're separated at the end. Yeah, non-player characters, which is what I just said, NPC. So you can see here, Elf Lords, Elementalist, Dwarf Guard, the Halfling, Reavers, Tieflings, Inquisitors. I think all of those are very useful to have. Pro, 9, again, I counted 8, I must have missed one somewhere. 9 templates for modifying existing monsters, plus we have all of those examples. So that's like your Aberrants, your Fungoids, there's shadow creatures, which have all like shadow jump and sunlight sensitivity and everything. And examples are given, really like over half a dozen examples for each of those. But you can also just take those templates and easily just create your own creature. Especially useful if you're making a themed dungeon, like, oh, it's a forest gone wild and the plants are coming alive. Then you want to take whatever like various beasts and just turn them into the Dendroid thing. You can easily do that with these templates. Pro, there are tables that organize the monsters by type, CR, and environment. What's the best way to look at those environment tables? Probably here in the compendium, I think. Let's see if this shows them. Okay, so they don't look like tables. I guess they are tables here. They look sexier in the PDF, I guess is what I'm saying. But it's still very useful to have. Separated by, again, type, and then their challenge rating, and then their environment. I think the environment's very helpful, so you can really see what all creatures, and pretty, honestly, did a really good job of kind of evening out. You can see between like coastal and desert and forest and everything, so that's very, very nice. Also, Pro, not pretty much all original and licensed artwork, no AI art whatsoever, and this is a huge advantage to the Dragonix books. That is just speaks to the quality of these books, and it looks absolutely amazing on token art here in the virtual tabletop. So a huge plus why you'd want to be using these creatures over a lot of other third-party monster books is that the artwork is there and it looks really good in a virtual tabletop. The only con I'm going to mention, again, I'm not going to include the fact that we don't get all the template tokens. So that's the one bummer. If you're going to make a template version of a creature, you are on your own for that particular token. For the most part, there's like maybe 2 or 3 examples that have art. Is that it is based on the 2014 Monster Manual instead of the 2024 Monster Manual. That's not even fair for me to put it as a con, because I get it. This was designed way before we knew what the 2024 books were. I do think it would be really awesome if the designer were to maybe patch some of the creatures, because I do think a lot of them did get very nicely upgraded when it came to their action economy and their defenses and stuff from the 2024 book. So it is a little bit of a bummer to take a step back from that with this one. I would very much hope, and this is almost me speaking to Dragonix, is because I know the 3rd book is coming, right? These have all been very successful, is that we do look at the 2024 book and incorporate some of those changes and updates, because a lot of the work that's done is literally drawing from those monster books in terms of the balance level of those stats, the multi-attacks and stuff. So I'm hoping we can at least use the new book as a baseline for our new creatures rather than go all the way back to 2014. And that is the case here. And it's something that people should be aware of now that we're in the new post-2024 Monster Manual. environment. So final thoughts: with over 350 stat blocks, including new templates, more variants, and lots of NPCs, and chock full of delicious artwork, Deadly Denizens 2 is another must-have monster book from one of the best D&D 5e designers. I think every single one of these is basically just a must-have book. Thank you to everyone for watching this D&D review. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brennan, Zenicider, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Libby, Spuds, Warden, Harold, Udemona, LC, Tom, the Dogs, Marcus, Nugget, Hugo, Shay, and Chris, and Gold patrons RPG Papercraft, Sweet Boy, and Yuma, Desert Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Pesica, Tortoise, Scott Riffus, Jerry Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support.